The Thuggee cult is one of the most enigmatic and terrifying secret societies to have ever existed. Operating in India for centuries, this group of ritualistic murderers combined religious devotion with criminal activity in a way that blurred the lines between faith and brutality. They were not a mere band of highway robbers or opportunistic killers. The thugs followed a strict code of conduct rooted in their belief system, which revolved around the worship of Kali, the Hindu goddess of destruction, time, and renewal. Their actions were not seen as crimes by the members themselves. Instead, they viewed their killings as sacred acts of devotion. The very notion of murder was elevated to a ritualistic and religious obligation, an offering to Kali to maintain cosmic balance. This combination of faith, secrecy, and violence made the Thuggee cult not just a menace to travelers, but also a profound challenge to the authorities of the time, who struggled to comprehend the scale and organization of their activities. The thugs operated with meticulous planning and an almost military-like discipline. Their membership was often hereditary, with knowledge, techniques, and beliefs passed down from generation to generation. However, the group was not entirely exclusive to familial lines. Orphans, abducted children, and occasionally outsiders who proved their loyalty were inducted into the fold. New recruits underwent rigorous training under the guidance of seasoned thugs, learning the intricate art of deception, the swift execution of murder, and the complex rituals that followed the act. A significant aspect of their training was understanding and interpreting omens, which the thugs believed were divine messages from Kali. These omens dictated their every move, from whether a planned attack should proceed to the choice of burial sites for their victims. Such superstitions were deeply ingrained, to the extent that ignoring an unfavorable omen was considered a betrayal of Kali and a surefire path to misfortune for the group. The modus operandi of the thugs was as sinister as it was effective. Disguised as fellow travelers or merchants, they would integrate themselves into caravans or groups of travelers on India's vast trade routes. These routes, vital for commerce and communication, were the lifeblood of the Indian subcontinent, but they were also fraught with danger due to bandits and wildlife. The thugs exploited this vulnerability, using their guise of camaraderie to gain the trust of their victims. They could spend days or even weeks building rapport, sharing food, and engaging in conversations with their targets. This period of deception allowed the thugs to lull their victims into a false sense of security, making the eventual betrayal and murder all the more shocking. When the time and location were deemed perfect, usually a remote and secluded spot, they would strike. Their weapon of choice, the rumal, a long scarf or handkerchief, was used to strangle their victims silently and efficiently. The precision and coordination of these attacks were remarkable. The thugs often executed their killings simultaneously, ensuring that no one escaped or raised an alarm. After the murders, the thugs carried out a series of rituals to honor Kali and secure her favor. The bodies were buried in pre-selected locations, often chosen based on superstitious beliefs or practical considerations to avoid discovery. Burial was an essential part of the process, not just to conceal evidence, but also to complete the religious ritual. The thugs believed that these acts of killing and burial were offerings to Kali, ensuring her continued protection and the success of future operations. This belief system not only justified their actions, but also provided a sense of unity and purpose to the group. It is estimated that the thugs may have murdered tens of thousands of people during their reign, a staggering number that speaks to both the scale of their operations and the fear they instilled in the populace. Entire regions became infamous as Thuggee territory, making travel a perilous endeavor and impacting trade and communication networks. The British colonial authorities, upon learning of the Thuggee menace in the early 19th century, were initially skeptical about the extent and organization of the group. However, as reports of their activities increased, the British realized that the thugs posed a significant threat to law and order in India. The campaign to eliminate the Thuggee cult was spearheaded by Captain William Henry Sleeman, whose systematic and relentless efforts ultimately led to the group's downfall. Sleeman approached the problem with a level of sophistication that was ahead of its time. Recognizing the secretive and hierarchical nature of the thugs, he relied heavily on intelligence gathered from captured members. These informants provided invaluable insights into the group's structure, rituals, and methods, allowing Sleeman to map their networks and identify key figures within the organization. Sleeman's efforts culminated in the establishment of the Thuggee and Dacoity Department, a specialized unit tasked with eradicating the cult. Through targeted raids, arrests, and trials, Sleeman and his team dismantled the infrastructure of the Thuggee network. Thousands of suspected thugs were captured, some were executed, others imprisoned, and a few exiled. The trials were a revelation, as captured thugs provided detailed accounts of their activities and beliefs, shocking both the colonial authorities and the broader public. These testimonies painted a picture of an organization that was as methodical as it was brutal, operating with a level of sophistication that belied its seemingly primitive methods. By the mid-19th century, the British had largely succeeded in suppressing the Thuggee cult, though remnants of their practices persisted in folklore and local legends. The legacy of the Thuggee cult is a complex one. On one hand, they are remembered as ruthless murderers whose actions terrorized generations. On the other hand, their story has been romanticized in popular culture, appearing in books, films, and academic studies. The thugs are often portrayed as enigmatic figures, bound by a code of honor and driven by religious conviction, which sets them apart from ordinary criminals. This romanticization, however, should not obscure the reality of their actions. The thugs were responsible for a staggering loss of life, and their impact on Indian society was profound. The psychological scars left by their reign of terror can still be felt in the folklore and oral traditions of the regions they once haunted. The Thuggee phenomenon also raises broader questions about the nature of belief and the capacity for violence in the name of faith. How could a group sustain such a grisly practice for centuries? What does it say about the human condition that murder could be ritualized and sanctified? These questions remain relevant today, as the story of the thugs serves as a chilling reminder of the dark intersections of religion, secrecy, and power. Even in their eradication, the thugs left behind a legacy that continues to captivate and horrify, a shadowy chapter in the annals of human history that defies easy understanding. Their tale is a stark illustration of how belief systems, when wielded with conviction and devoid of moral restraint, can be turned into tools of unimaginable cruelty.